and I want to make one more point about this, because I choose not to buy into the propaganda. This has happened to me in every single situation, and some of the people that have done it to me have surprised me because they've known who I am for a while. I'm predictable. You can count on me like a clock. I have principles, and I'm going to stick to them. And I don't care who's in power, and I don't care what the situation is right now. I'm going to look at my principles, and I'm going to come out right on the end.
Instead of conflict and aggression, here's governance built on grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. Well, I'm supposed to give you a whiz-bang intro here, and the fact is that we want to share these 5 truths about warmongering, but in a graceful way. We want to start to bring grace to the fore here. We've talked about steel manning. We've given you some other how-to, but this Evergreen episode, we're going to address something kind of fun. Jim, we're going to talk about pronouns.
We are going to talk about a pronoun. That's exactly right.
And very specifically a pronoun that involves all of us.
Yes.
Which I'm going to throw your way. But there's more going on, because here we are in the middle of what's supposed to be a ceasefire in the Iran conflict, war. I'm not even sure how to address it anymore, man. I really don't. But it gives us an opportunity to say some things that we need to say.
Okay. So for people watching in the future, to know, we are just shy of the 6-week anniversary of the early 2026 Iran, hesitate to call it a war. It is a war, but then again, it's not. Whatever. We'll get into some of that perhaps. So our motivation for doing this episode is current, and we will be using some current examples. But the most powerful, important thing I can say right up front is that there's going to be principles laid out here, and they will be permanent and evergreen. I have been having conversations with a variety of people, left, right, and center, mostly right and libertarian, frankly. And I've been surprised by how people are handling information, how there is almost this new sensation that a war comes along and it's suddenly everything's fresh and new. It's like we've never been here before. Oh, and the truth,
we have. I mean, your background on this with the wartruth.org.
Wartruth.org and Truth About War. Wartruth.org is a series of articles that talk about the history of U.S. military interventions up through World War II. It covers a period of almost 100 years, 75 years.
75 years. And what we're seeing now is nothing new.
And then we have an episode we're going to include in the show notes that dealt with the Iraq War. We were upfront about that one, and we were able to make predictions about that one that we got right. So I feel like I have a track record to point to. We'll get more into that later, but I believe that if you have some history and you have some principles, you can judge these situations. And I want to put this show out, the value of this show as being, you can come back to the show even when we're not talking about the Iran war, and when it's the next thing, because there will be another escapade. This is what they do. Yep. And you will be able to use what we say here. We're going to give you 5 things, and actually a little bit more than 5. It'll be like maybe 5.5 or 5.7, but we're going to give you 5 things that you can take away from here that you can apply to these claims and future claims about warmongers. They're warmongers. I'm just going to, it's a warmongering government, and there's a reason for that. We'll get into it.
Okay, so one of the things that you've said that I love is that if anything good comes out of the Iran war, it'll be an accident. It's not the art of the deal. People, let me just go on record right now. This is me, Bill Protzmann, saying this has nothing to do with the art of the deal. And those tweets that happened.
Me, Jim Babka, looks at this situation, and the regime that's running Iran, I don't want them to thrive.
No way. It's been 47 years of just.
So my priors are that every state should go out of existence. I don't like states. Okay. States are an institution that has the monopoly on the use of initiated violence. That, in other words, they're able to say, do this or else. And or else means people with badges come and do bad things to you, up to and including killing you if you resist. That is what the state is. So we should be very, very reticent about giving them any power whatsoever. But if the regime is tyrannical, that's worse. right? So there's degrees of bad or degrees of evil in statism, and the degree of evil is clearly severe here. So I am rooting for the people of Iran. I would like them to be able to overthrow this government. If that happens, that will be great news. This at this hour, I'm dubious. I'm really dubious. We have been told in the past that if we did regime change, we'd be greeted as liberators. And everything about how this particular situation has been carried out, first by the president getting everybody hot and bothered in Iran to stand up to the government and then not showing up for weeks, over a month, led to thousands and thousands. The president himself has set the number at 45,000. I don't believe that number, but he has set it at 45,000. But let's say it's 20,000. Let's say it's 10,000. That's still epically awful.
Yeah.
And then when he finally did take action, most of his motives appeared to not be, especially with the recent messages about obliterating a civilization, taking out all their electrical infrastructure and bridges, seems to be anti the people. It doesn't seem to be about liberating them. It seems to be about destroying them.
It's not even a credible threat.
Right. It's so the motives have been all over the place. Greed. We had this. We're going to be greeted as liberators mentality that several people are still talking about. Like, we're going to overthrow the regime and the people are going to rise up and it's going to be great. Oh, no, wait. It's about weapons of mass destruction. The thing we really need is a deal on the nuclear stuff. Oh, wait, it's about the Strait of Hormuz. We got to make sure we keep the oil flowing. No, wait.
And the
Yeah, no, wait. It's our allies that need to step up and do something. It's their oil. No. The president's going to rain hell on an entire nation. Like, this has been all over the place. And you have to be clear on something. A lot of people are blaming Trump. As we're sitting here right now, Trump's negatives are going up, even on this situation. Some of his own people are beginning to question him. It's not the guy. This George W. Bush went into Iraq, made a mess, made a big mess, a predictable mess. We'll get into that. Like, it's not the guy. This is government in action. The Pentagon is just the post office in fatigues.
This is what happens when you give unbridled power to people who have no bridle.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, we got 5 points to make here. Okay, first thing is no royal we. Jim, what do you mean by this?
Okay, so I want everybody in on the secret. I have invited Bill before we sat down in this recording to call me on this every time I actually mess up like this, because this is a normal way of communicating about the actions of our government. And in no place is it less appropriate and more common simultaneously than it is about the actions of the military. Oh, we bombed Iran. Oh, we took out a factory. Oh, we killed 200 people. Oh, we're really showing their leaders, like, we're giving them what for. No, you didn't do anything. You were probably sleeping, eating, farting. You were doing everything other than doing anything about this situation. You might have even been bloviating about it.
Most importantly, you pointed out that because of an executive action, none of us, the rest of us, had a say through our elected representatives.
There was no declaration of war in this particular situation. Our Congress was not consulted, and we talked about this in the instant grace that we did immediately preceding that show. So we will put that down in the show notes if you want to hear me elaborate on that point.
Okay, but so no royal we.
No royal we.
And there's the
there's the gong. So if I start to slip and speak about we doing this or that, or us, that's another version of we, that is the wrong pronoun to use when referring to the actions of your government. You did nothing. And this rhetorical slip is so bad that one of my favorite people ever in the political space, Ron Paul, used to do it all the time. He'd say something virtuous, and then he'd slip into the pronoun. He would say, they don't do whatever. And that was the good thing. And then the bad thing, he would start saying the we. Like, he had this pronoun confusion that would take place. Beautiful man. People did understand what he was saying, but he did this a lot. And it's just because we're used to talking this way. We're used to talking as if the government is us. And I'm telling you, if you're doing it, there's like this macho-ness that people bring to this. Oh, look how tough we are.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not bad at all. And I am on alert. I have alerted myself to be, if you use these terms in front of me, I'm thinking, well, here's somebody that thinks more of themselves than they are, right? Because you're not as bad as you think you are. In the military, the people doing the work with the weapons, they may be pretty bad, but it wasn't you that did it.
Okay, number 2 is health of the state.
Randolph Bourne famously says, war is the health of the state. And that statement is far truer than people realize. So what he was talking about was that the state flourishes in a time of war. It blows up, it expands, it gains all kinds of new powers. But it's not just that. The fact of the matter is, it's a metaphor for how the state functions at every level. Because as we just talked about in the intro, everything that the state gets involved in, it's do this or else. It's a threat. The whole system is operated under a threat. There's a sword dangling in front of us every time we don't do what the people in the state have decreed we must do.
Well, the state knows war well. We got the war on drugs, war on poverty, war on education, war on the National Park Service, war on just pick anything, right?
There's war on everything. There's war on everything. It's a constant state of war. So I want everybody to understand that this is the only thing politicians have to contribute to any situation, and they always expand their power. So war is good for them in ways that it is not good for the people. War is good for them in ways it's not good for the alleged subjects or beneficiaries. So what that means is, when we talk about the people on the ground in a country like Iran, we could sit there and pontificate about how our purpose, or in the blockade in Cuba that's going on right now, how our purpose is noble and our intent is good, and they will benefit in the long run from our wonderful plans.
Yes, down the road, of course.
Look how great we are.
Couldn't resist.
No, that was the place to do it. But the fact of the matter is, this benefits the politicians. They don't really pay the consequences. Other people who are alleged beneficiaries do. And we could do this. Let me do this in one other area just so you really get the point. In the realm of welfare, we trap people in a system rather than empower them and help them liberate. And we expand these networks so they become...
I missed it the first time.
So they become drag nets instead of safety nets.
Yes.
But the language of the people advancing the cause never changes. Look how wonderful we are for advancing this cause.
On your behalf.
On your behalf. So, right. Dear Iranians, dear Cubans, we care so much about you that we would see you starve.
Yep.
War is the health of the state.
Truth, the first casualty. What do you mean by this, Jim?
In war. And this is a big thing that we emphasize. In fact, it was the main thing we emphasized back in episode 90. That was our 21-year analysis of the invasion of Iraq. We talked about a website called truthaboutwar.org, wherein a group of colleagues, I'll mention some of their names now, Perry Willis, Kristen Overn, Jeff Braun, Steve Willis, myself, Harry Brown, told the story about the Iraq War was built on lies. And the biggest one that was the most taken for granted, the hardest to stand out and say at the time, which we did, we bought radio ads in cities in advance of the bombing, was that there were no nuclear weapons of mass destruction. I won't get into all that stuff. That episode is very detailed. It was underwatched. I'm disappointed by it. It didn't have enough of that gotcha grab about, conflict or the current events or whatever. It was much more, thoughtful and historical. It's definitely worth going and watching it. We will put that in the show notes. But the very first thing that happened in every war, and this was to us a hallmark example of that, is that truth becomes a casualty itself. And almost everyone plays along with this. There's this belief that, and it's contradictory, that somehow or other we can govern ourselves. We can participate in a democracy and be informed voters and inform the leadership of the country how we want it to be run, while at the same time being treated like a mushroom, kept in the dark and pooped upon.
So you said we a few times there, and I think it's important to recognize this because we, the voters, are a different kind of a thing than we, the country that is bombing Iran right now.
Correct. Correct.
And I want to make that distinction clear because as a voter, I feel pretty powerless.
Yes. And that's where I'm driving at here, because there's propaganda. So the state, the people running the government, have the ability to do two things. They have the ability to say things to you that will make you want to make war, and it can be based on the flimsiest of evidence or the complete absence of evidence. But all expectations of claims in opposition, the standard you will be put to when you oppose them is you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the claims that are being made by the people in power are wrong. And the politicians, the same politicians who gave you the data that supported their case, are holding back what they know. And they're putting it under classification for national security, of course.
Of course.
Because we can't know this. We rubes would make the wrong decision if we had all of the information. No, we rubes. I think this is the right use of it. We rubes would have we would not be able, we would make the wrong decision.
Yeah, we the rubes would take action based upon the information that we the rubes gave you that was incomplete.
Well, no, let me clarify, because we're getting into some pronoun confusion here. I want to make sure everybody's understanding this.
Good.
We's appropriate when we're talking about the voters. We, you and me, the members of the audience, are uninformed. It's not appropriate because we're not part of the leadership. We didn't make the decisions. And we, the voters, were never consulted. So when someone starts saying something that the administration's doing and calling it we, when somebody's talking about something that Donald Trump ordered and calling it we, when somebody's talking about something that a pilot did and calling it we, that's not appropriate. But for our purposes here, I want to say we, the people, are constantly put in a position where we're given false information, weak information, bad information, incomplete information. And the other stuff is classified. Because war is the health of the state, it's good for business. It's very good for their business. And we have a name for this, but we hardly ever use it when we're in the war fever stage. And it's called propaganda. So what wars typically rely on is this hysteria at the beginning, this fever, this passion for we got to go fix something. Let's send our government to do this, right? We support the politician in power that's making the claims. Oh, well, we can't let Saddam Hussein bomb an American city. There was never even a remote risk of that happening. Guess what? Never a remote risk here in the case of Iran either, previous to these attacks. Now, I don't know what will happen with the uranium that is still there. I don't know whether a dirty bomb or something could be fashioned, but the regime until this hour had no incentive whatsoever, and they had shown tremendous restraint historically. There was no way they were going to do something like that to the United States. No American was in any danger here while living in the United States. I didn't say no American was in danger. We have put Americans in danger in various spots around the globe, including Iraq, which is right next door. But no American that was here at home, living their life, was in danger to this regime. And what the politicians typically do with this propaganda is they proclaim this message: war is peace. That's a line straight out of George Orwell. War is peace. And it's an oxymoron. If we go wage the war, then all these wonderful things will happen as a result of it. And this is important because in every one of these cases, we're talking about a preemptive act. There was no moment at which Iraq was a threat to the United States. The country was invaded by choice, by the choice of the president and his immediate advisors. There is no case where Iran was an immediate threat to the people of the United States living here inside the boundaries of the United States of America.
I know. I'm letting you make your point here. If you don't get away with it, I'll hit you with the gong. But yes, all of us living here at home.
But we had to bomb Iran anyway.
Yes, and that one is gong worthy.
There we go. Okay? A war of choice So this is a preemptive act. So war is not peace, war is war. War is tragedy. War is bad things happening. And one of the side effects, the thing I cannot account for, is what happens in what's called blowback.
Yes.
So when we, the people, fall for the lies of the politicians who wanted it, their propaganda, when we fall for it, consequences that might not have occurred before may well come due now. Let me give you two examples. One is a refugee crisis. All of the surrounding nations have reason to be concerned, particularly if Trump does something so foolishly ridiculous as take out all the bridges and all the power plants, which is what he was threatening to do as recently as this past Sunday. So you'll be able to time this in history where this happened. I don't know. In the future, you may be watching this and maybe he did it. I don't know. But as of right now, I'm just going to say this is an act of hostility against the people, against regular people.
Yeah,
human beings
citizens.
living their lives, not the state, not the theocracy, the regular people. And when you do these kinds of things and you harm real people, it's actually astonishing to me how rare it is that people get up the courage, give up the normal pursuit of happiness that humans engage in, trying to advance their property and take care of their family and work in their career, how they will give all of that up and decide to go engage in an act of terrorism that might even cost them their life. This happens so little that we can count them, right? It's something we can count the number of terrorist incidents on the planet, the number of people involved in those incidents. Given the amount of destruction that's caused by war, given the amount of collateral damage that occurs, that number should be far larger. There should be a lot more people so angry and upset that they want to come back. But the point is, 9/11 is one day. It's 19 people. It wasn't the whole width and breadth of every person that sympathized with those actions, by the way, that cheered them because they're like, now the United States got their comeuppance. Look at all the stuff they don't know what all they've done here. Now they're getting their comeuppance. And that's disgusting and appalling that people want to take vengeance. But you know what? It's normal. It's natural. And it wouldn't have happened if the action hadn't happened in the first place. And that action is always enabled by propaganda, which is the situation by which you didn't get the information you needed to falsify the political claims. And I want to make one more point about this. Because I choose not to buy into the propaganda. This has happened to me in every single situation, and some of the people that have done it to me have surprised me because they've known who I am for a while. I'm predictable. You can count on me like a clock. I have principles, and I'm going to stick to them. And I don't care who's in power, and I don't care what the situation is right now. I'm going to look at my principles, and I'm going to come out right on the end. Let me just be as bold as possible right now and say, I'm going to come out right in the end. I get called names. I'm told that I'm un-American. I'm told that I want the bad guys to win. That's my favorite. Like I made clear here earlier in the show, it would be a good thing on balance if the theocracy fell. I'm against it. I'm against states. So you're not going to find me rooting any of these people on. But I don't want my government getting involved with it. I don't think they should be able to take taxpayer funds and steal them from people and then use those funds and those people's names from things that they lied to those same people about. And that there's going to be negative consequences like refugee crisis, like blowback and other things. But I get called names. I don't support the troops, or I hate the troops, or I want the other side to win. Ben Shapiro just this week literally said that. Literally said, if you're not in support of this war, you're rooting for the other side. That's just so categorically false. That's a straw man claim. And as you know, here at Gracearchy, we're not fans of straw man claims. We prefer to steel man. But let's just to close this out. Truth is the first casualty because the politicians benefit from it being that way. And the things that I know that I will be right in the long run, right? This is their preemptive acts are about the long run. But I know I will be right instead because it was founded on half-truths and lies.
Okay, fourth point. Unfortunately, you don't run the war.
Okay, so we started off talking about the royal we in the first segment, the royal we.
The royal we.
Which means that this is a rhetorical slip people engage in where they basically take credit for something they had nothing to do with. And they treat the state, so this is the second thing I could say about that, as if it is a person and they are part of that person. They personify it and then attach their own being and identity to it.
And that's different than just going along for the ride, which, those who are not supporters of this administration are also involved in it by implication.
Yes. Okay.
So there's a difference there.
So now we're graduating to another level of the royal we, because these royal we claims, a lot of times people say we, and they just basically are commenting on something that happened. We bombed a certain facility.
Yeah.
Where's the gong?
Well, I can do that, but it was hardly gong worthy.
Right. But there are people who are advocating for it.
Yes, very much.
I want to talk about the fact that you don't have a personal foreign policy. This is a brand new idea that hardly anybody thinks about. Even most libertarians have not thought about this. And I want to put this on your plate. I would like this to be a worm in your brain that won't go away. Like you just are like, oh man, I want to say something that after you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And you will start to see it all over the place. So I want you to imagine that you did have a foreign policy. You, Bill Protzmann, every member of our audience has their own foreign policy. What that means practically is that they couldn't take your money, then appropriate however they want.
Okay, yeah.
In order to get support for the war, forget having to go get a declaration of war from Congress, because clearly this limited government scheme has not worked. They have found a way to void it. They're not following the Constitution right now. And this, by the way, is why when you hear Democrats objecting to what Trump's doing in war, or you heard Republicans objecting to what Obama did in Libya, and so on and so forth, right? This is why you can't trust any of them, because when they're in power, they want this power. And when they're not in power, they'll oppose it. And their reasons for doing this are strictly partisan. And most of the criticism that we get when we talk about these issues is partisan. The very same people who are for the actions now were opposed to other actions in other cases when it was a Democrat in charge. That is a very, very common pattern. I'm not saying everybody does it, but it's a very common pattern. But money now gets taken and then things get done in your name. You didn't choose to pay the taxes. That choice was made for you. You didn't choose then, even through this Byzantine system that we have, where we elect a member to Congress who allegedly is going to speak for us. You didn't get to choose in that way either, because they skipped that step. And by the way, the Congress was complicit in it. They chose not to participate. They had the power. They were set up as a separate co-equal branch under the Founding Fathers' design, and they went, you know what they do instead? They take their finger, they lick it, and they stick it in the air, and they wait to see which way the wind blows. It's like sailing. You tack your sails whichever way the wind is blowing at the time. So if they don't get committed in advance to the war, they're free to say whatever they want as the scenario goes on. This is something, by the way, that our Founding Fathers didn't foresee. They completely missed this. They thought they could set up 3 separate co-equal branches, and that would check everything, and then everything would be fine. But no. It turns out that these people say, well, I look at the polls. Polls didn't exist back then. I look at the polls, and the polls tell me that I should be for this today. But when things start to go sideways, as they usually do, then later they can come out and start talking about how I was always kind of questioning this in the first place. I really don't think this was a great idea. The president made a strategic error. They never get to the root of the problem, which was the strategic error was almost inevitable to happen because this institution didn't raise its support. It just chose to do what it did, and it has very little skin in the game at the start. We all have very little skin in the game at the start. Actually, that we was right.
I love that you argue for them, right?
This is what I have to argue for. No, because
I didn't vote for this war. Did you vote for this war?
But do you have skin in the game?
Well, yeah. I mean, the taxes they're taking from me is my skin.
Okay. I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that.
And if I had a foreign policy that was mine, as you've challenged all of our listeners to do,
you'd be able to keep your own money, to save, to spend, to invest, to give away as you see fit. And if you said, hey, you know what? We need to liberate those people over in Iraq, and I'm going to support that.
Check the box on your tax return, people.
Forget that. Just do it voluntarily.
Or just
organize if you want to. Right? Support some organization that's going over there doing it.
We see this
has been done in the past.
It's been done and it's happening now.
There were a lot of people that picked up and grabbed their bags when Ukraine was invaded and went over to Poland and started helping out. I know of one personally.
I do too. And people who helped get the troops out of Afghanistan, and then the Afghanis that had helped us out of Afghanistan on their own nickel, right?
So all this stuff can be done, and then the people involved. No, so because of the fact that they have limited resources, by virtue of the fact they had to be efficient with those resources because they know what it costs to raise those resources, they use that money far wiser than any politician ever would, and they don't do things that would cause their donors to run away and flee.
Yes.
But what you can do with our state is you can buy a politician for relatively low cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then after you've paid those bills, which now amount to maybe tens of millions, you get the leverage of the largest military in the history of mankind. You get a military that is larger than the next 9 militaries, largest militaries combined. You get access to all those tools and technologies for your benefit. That's how lobbying works. It's a high leverage game where you get to steal from everybody else. And because of it, things are going to go wrong. It is inevitable that they're going to go wrong. And if you wanted to have your own foreign policy, none surprisingly, the government has made, the federal government has a law that says it's illegal for you to do that. It's called the Logan Act. So if you say, hey, look, I know how to broker a peace. And this has happened historically. Jimmy Carter has done it. Jesse Jackson has done it. They've gone overseas and tried to talk to a foreign leader. And people who wanted the war back home have said they should be prosecuted for treason. They violated the Logan Act. So if you had a plan for peace, if you had a plan for something else, you can't execute it. So now when I get told in these situations by all these armchair generals that this situation is different, I don't understand the facts on the ground. I don't have the full history of the situation. I don't understand why this situation is different from all the other ones. Because this is what they tell me every single time I oppose one of these things. There's always somebody there to tell me this. Always. They're not new. They always say this time is different. Let me say that again. They always say this time is different. Because they're aware of the bad historical track record. And you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe this will be the time. Maybe this will be the time that it's different. But in advance, I wouldn't put my money there. So while it's fun to play, I want to tell you, if you're playing this game, and you're not going to like this when I say this, you own the people playing the game. Whatever they're doing, they own you, you own them, you're all together. So if you said, hey, you know what? You know, it'd be a really good idea right now. We're going to run a blockade around Cuba, and we're going to liberate that country, but we're going to starve those people out. If this goes sideways on you, or wait a minute, you were really excited in the hours of the weekend when Venezuela had their dictator kidnapped out of the country with no American casualties, you say, wow, they're going to bring about regime change, and it didn't come. If you were enthusiastically supporting the president and taking these actions in Iran now, you can't suddenly go, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. He did it wrong. It should have been done this way because you're not the king. You're not in control. You don't get to run the war. You're not the general. You're not the player. You're not the president. Remember the we? You ain't part of the we. It is a club and you ain't in it. And you're going to sit there and say, well, we should have done this and we should have done that. But you had no position. You just showed everybody simultaneously that you own the policy. You're part of the problem. You supported and engaged in public support of it. And then you're telling everybody, but they didn't do it the right way. They didn't do it my way. Well, you were never on the team in the first place.
Even if you paid your, how shall I say it properly, dues to have access?
Yeah. So I have little respect for this. And I want to be clear. I have respect for people. I have people I admire and believe in and enjoy. But I have little respect for being told repeatedly, in some cases, that it's okay to insult me on this issue because I disagree with them, or that I'm supposed to advocate for the promised benefit even though it never materializes, or though the consequences may be slow, but I will tell you they always seem to come, right? Like, it just bothers me that somehow or other I'm put on the hook. I'm the problem. So I'm not making any big claims here. You are. You see what I'm saying?
I have people like that in my life, and I need a response. Like, what's the graceful response to that?
We're going to, well,
I mean, I'm jumping the gun on this because we got another point to go, but you know what I'm saying?
It's not going to come up there either. I understand the question. I'm trying to say that I believe I have a track record. I believe that if you follow these principles, you're going to come out on the right end consistently. And the right end is to not trust the politicians. The right end is to recognize that the odds that they're going to screw this up bad are huge, and that there are likely to be bad side effects that would not have occurred. Like, they'll tell you about a cataclysmic event that has no potential of occurring, but smaller, really awful events will occur. And it might be the difference between this dramatic pain they were telling you were going to get at the beginning, but a dull, constant pain that doesn't go away for good. That just keeps coming and coming and coming. Refugee crisis, by the way, horrible thing for the people stuck involved in it. Horrible thing for the countries that have to absorb it. It is a main crisis for humanity. And Americans haven't really experienced, our response to having some refugees come to our country has been appalling. You should see what it looks like in a real refugee camp.
Yes.
On the border of these countries.
Yes.
The hell and the misery that's starting to ensue there, and the cataclysmic international crisis that develops in these situations, which is routine and affects children who clearly weren't part of the royal we, right?
Yes.
So we've made 2 points here that I want to kind of pull together. The first one is that the truth is the first casualty, right? There's propaganda. And it means that you have incomplete information. And then secondly, now, you don't run the war. So the people that are actually acting off of the propaganda and advocating for the advancement of a particular policy, a proactive policy of war, are the most deceived amongst us. You put those two thoughts together. You put the thought together that they're giving us propaganda with the fact that you enthusiastically embraced the cause and tried to get other people enrolled in it. You tried to get other people to agree with what was going on. Inevitably, you're going to be the most wrong. It happens so much. So the answer to your question, Bill, is that all I can hope is that somebody comes back and watches this or goes back and reads Truth About War, which we're going to put in the show notes. Like they go consume this episode or that, episode 90, and they start to go, wait a minute, there was a pattern here. I could have known in advance. I could have known differently. Think I'm wrong today. Go ahead. Pretend like this time is different. But I don't think that that's going to play out 5 and 10 and 15 years from now. But everybody forgets. This is what bothers me. I feel like Cassandra in these situations. Everybody forgets. They're on to the next bit of hysteria where they're being told this one is different.
Here we go with war. DEI, deifies the state. I already said it. YouTube bots, come and get me. War deifies the state.
Yeah, well, we get DEI is how you begin to spell that word. Deifies means to make godlike. To make godlike. Connected to this idea that we shared in the first segment about the royal we. About the club that you're not a part of. The people making these decisions. The entire edifice of the state, which we have also defined today and explained, is the institution that by threat says you're going to do this or else.
This show is brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. Zap newsletter subscribers get alerts when each episode is released. The Zap website is also the pathway by which you can contact us by email and support the show. This program operates thanks to tax-deductible Zap contributions, and we appreciate your support. So, zap the state, and have a nice day.
The state is an abstraction. It's not an actual person. It's not a person of will with ambitions and goals and dreams making a decision. It's a collection of those people who have their own interests. And they're acting on their individual interests and advancing their own personal happiness, maybe at the expense of you. Nevertheless, they are doing something. They are individually and morally responsible for their acts. And you know what? You are individually and morally responsible for your acts and what you advocate.
So is voting an advocacy? Are we
It
gonna
is.
go there? Okay.
It is. If you're going to take a side and so you can't blame me because my guy lost. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'm safe, because my guy lost. But if he's in there and I helped him get elected, I'm sharing in his ability to get things done or not get things done or do the exact opposite of what he campaigned on, like is the case right now. The state is in this state of abstraction. It is a concept and a thought into which people believe, they accept, they participate in. And it needs to prove it's real. It needs to prove it's potent. It needs to prove it's effective. It needs to prove that you should take it seriously. It also needs to prove that the whole world needs to take it seriously, which explains some of the bombast and bluster of this president. Take us seriously. We have guns. We have missiles. But it's such an awesome machine. It is capable of waging such destruction. It's godlike. And it requires your worship and your fealty, and it requires the obedience of everyone because it's a deity. You have to participate in the game. So there's this esoteric philosophy that I buy into, and it helps me understand why I consistently oppose these things. And if you understand it, it'll do the same thing to you. My camera sits propped on top of a book. Every one of the episodes we've done has set atop this, except for the first few, ever since we've been on, let's say, probably from the teens on. This camera's been propped up on a book called Blood, Sacrifice, and the Nation by Carolyn Marvin. And this book is recommended by another scholar named Richard Koenigsberg. And what they have attempted to demonstrate is that the state has to make itself real through blood. Blood has to be shed. It's a religious act in which, war is a religious act in which we engage, and it comes replete with rituals. And the most obvious of these rituals, and this is going to be really hard to accept and swallow. You're going to think I went to crazy town here, but this is another one of these mind worms. Once it gets in your head, you're going to have trouble sending it away. We just recently, in our history, had a controversy over whether or not athletes needed to stand and have their helmets or hats off looking at the flag. If they chose to kneel, which is an act of reverence both in church settings, prayer, and in military settings when you're at the grave of a fallen veteran, if you chose to kneel as a ball player during the invocation, that's what it was. It was a prayer. It was the call to order of worship before the big sporting event. If you, before the circus started, did not do the ritual correctly, you've somehow or other harmed dead people. On a flag that's waving around with red stripes, and why are the stripes red? Because they represent the blood of fallen patriots who fought for your liberty and freedom. There's a worship service going on here, and you're supposed to worship in the order of worship and under the ritual rules set forth. Otherwise, you are a disturbance to the peace. And for the state, when the war is all over, well, first they'll have ceremonies for the troops that come home. They'll name streets and bridges and other stuff after them. And then they'll build, those are monuments. They'll build actual monuments to them as a constant reminder that we're in charge. And you will honor those things, because to not do so is to basically call into question the entire existence of the country. Your whole nation is called into question, its very existence, because you didn't have 100% enthusiasm. You needed to support the troops in life and in death. You needed to be especially reverent of their death. Which, by the way, conveniently, the state, being ever the manipulator and enjoying the health of war, uses to recruit future generations.
I just read this morning that the draft is coming back.
Yeah, well, you too could be a hero. They're trying to say this is true heroism. And we take advantage to a large degree. This is going to really hurt some people's feelings. People are going to be angry here. We take advantage of people when they're 18 and 19 years old and don't know better. Some of them come home and wake up. A lot of them do. The ones that go into combat, there's a lot of them that come home and go, whoa. And they'll tell you. They'll say, what I'm saying now, they will say.
There are whole NGOs organized around the principle of war is bad by military veterans.
Okay.
Veterans for Peace. You just pick any number of them. They're out there.
So the state needs to build, and this Carolyn Marvin shows the flag totem at work. And Konigsberg shows the need for the monuments. And this deifies the state and makes it sends a signal that and we all participate in it in a certain way. We all participate in the rituals and say the right things. Thank you for your service and all the rest of it. We all participate in this in a certain way that we are kind of all on board with what we didn't decide, with all the crime that was associated with it, with the propaganda that was involved in it, with all the side effects that come from it. Somehow or other, still at the end of the day, because at the beginning, the American people, by supporting this, meant well. Let's leave aside what the politicians did. We've covered that thoroughly here. Because we meant well, it's all okay. And we just continue to this game on and on and on, as if somehow or other, this is all fantastically virtuous.
It's a theocracy I can't buy into.
There you go. So in the Ten Commandments, it says that you're not supposed to worship false idols. The U.S. federal government is a false idol. The Pentagon is a false idol. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard are false idols. Now, I'm not opposed to defense, and I do appreciate human beings who want to protect the borders of this country from foreign invasion. I do. And I see it as the tragedy of the highest order when these people are also amongst the fallen. So I'm concerned on both ends about the destruction that will occur when the gods of war show up in a foreign nation. I'm disgusted, saddened by what happens to the people who either come home in boxes or come home broken. And all of it's, most of the time, completely unnecessary. Most of the time, completely unnecessary. So let's review real quick. The actions of the government are not your actions. And you shouldn't walk around professing that we did this or we did that. War is the health of the state. The politicians thrive. The more money they can spend, the more power they have. And they even get lionized in war. Most presidents want one. Truth is the first casualty of war. You're going to be lied to. The way they get us into war typically is to give us half-truths and falsehoods. And they combine that into a brew and they feed that to you. And they keep the stuff that would change your mind classified. And we often don't find out about it years later. Think about the Pentagon Papers. You don't run the war. You don't run the war. So when you start to identify with it and you start to support it, you are an apologist. You are a collaborator. And you're stuck with the administration that you just endorsed. You went along with it. You cheered it. You told everybody, hey, this is a good idea right now. You did it while that person was in office and you did it knowingly. So just because they did it in a way you didn't want done doesn't mean you're not on the hook. And war deifies the state. It makes the state potent and powerful. It gives it identity. It makes it real. And you shouldn't serve a false idol. So I want to encourage everyone. These are 5 things that you can understand about the proposals warmongers make. Warmongers, people who want war, who get excited about it, like Lindsey Graham does. This is, and previously John McCain. They want death and destruction to rain down, and they want the budgets and the contracts to flow. It's these people who will not tell you the full truth up front, but may leave you with the consequences thereafter. Stop identifying with it. Stop supporting it. And please know, even if you need to watch this years from now, please know it's not going to work out. It's just not going to work out like they said.